Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Finance Committee. It is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. I have exactly 4 o'clock. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And we have item number 2 on the agenda is the minutes of March 13th. Did everybody have a chance to look at them? And I want to thank Mira again for her minute work. Do I have, and all of us attended, so do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 13th, 2025?
I'll make a motion, Mary.
Patty?
No, it was,
Kate?
no, it was Roy.
Roy?
I went first, I think.
Okay. Roy is making the motion.
I'll say-
Patty is seconding it. Is that correct? Is that a word, seconding it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor of the minutes of March 13th, 2025, and Paul and Roy and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Okay, and we don't have the minutes. I know that was an extensive, I haven't seen the minutes for the.
Okay, I actually sent it this afternoon and I know it was a short notice.
Oh, okay,
Those are the ones, those who.
I haven't seen them because I was involved with something else this afternoon.
Can you
Do you want to look them over very quickly?
No, I can,
They're good. They're great.
yeah, well, it was a lot of work with all the various articles.
The second, it was the first time I think you went to 2 pages that I.
Oh, usually, yes, this time of the year.
A lot going on.
Yeah, so we do have the minutes of March 20th,
Mhm.
2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 2025? That's Kate. Do I have a second for the minutes, Ron? Is there any discussion? Has everybody seen them? Okay. All in favor of the minutes of March 2025? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to abstain. And Roy, you're abstaining?
Yes,
So,
Yeah, okay, so that's 7, 702, right? 702. And that is me and Roy. Very good. And thank you, Mira, that was. They're having a party out there. So I want to thank you again because I haven't seen them yet, but I know that there was a long meeting and I'm assuming all of the articles and who voted and, and all the votes are on there. I'm on to the agenda of item number 3, review of warrant articles, votes not taken. And I went over everything that we have reviewed, and I have the ones that we didn't do were Article 2A, which we didn't vote on. We had Article 6A, which we didn't vote on. And we had Articles 8B through 8H. Is that, am I correct about that from everybody's perspective? Is anything that I missed of the articles that we didn't discuss? So we go to the warrant for Article 2A, which is the operating budget. I'm not sure how everybody would, obviously we have to vote on the whole thing, but there are obviously an assortment of pieces associated with the Article 2A. I don't know whether people want to go through each of the various pieces, like the elected and general town administration, operations and finance, or do people feel that they have specific questions regarding anything in particular? Instead of doing that format, what are people's thoughts?
So you could take a motion to just approve 2A in a whole, or you could, as Mary said, if there's any line item you want to exclude and talk about,
Hmm,
we can do that, but obviously it'd be much more efficient to take one vote.
right, it's one final vote, right?
I can make the motion that we approve 2A.
Just a minute, let me just get this down here. Kate is making a motion to approve Article 2A. Do I have a second on Article 2A? Steve? Do I have any particular item in Article 2A that people would like to ask about?
Rich, nothing's changed on this.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
You have the benefits such as it is of the budget hearing for Monday, so.
Right.
Yeah. I don't see anybody raising their hand as far as any particular item in Article 2A. Do I have a motion to approve the Article 2A in the warrant as printed?
That's what we.
That-
did.
Well, I'm sorry, you see, you did second, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. All in favor of Article 2A? That's 9-0. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, okay, so Article 2A is Kate, Steve, and 9-0. The other item that, excuse me, the other article, I'm sorry, that I had is Article 6A, if people want to go to that, let me do this first. Let me see. Six A. I believe that is the transfer.
Mhm.
And Mary, I didn't think of it, but there was a change, so I'm not sure what version of the warrant
Yeah.
everybody has, but just to be clear, on Monday, the select board talked about this article to finalize it. And it is in Paul's letter, but I don't think I sent this out to you separately. So the wording is going to say, instead of the 1%
Mhm.
transfer
Up to
fee,
3%,
it's gonna, the language is a real estate transfer fee of up to 3% of the
Right.
purchase price
right,
exceeding $1 million
right,
exemption amount upon the transfer of any real property interest in any real property situated in the town of Eastham. The fee and exemption amount may be amended by a 2/3 vote of an annual or special town meeting.
right.
So
And
that,
everything else stays the same.
right,
So it's basically, because the one I have says the 2/3 vote and it says exceeding $1 million. What it doesn't have is up to 3%.
right, but also new in a sense is the exemption amount and the fee amount up to the 3% are voted by town meeting, a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So the clarifying point is, if this were to pass the legislature, which, we don't think is likely individually for the town, we'd still have to go back to town meeting and then set those limits.
So I'm just looking at the second sentence where it starts the exemption amount. May be amended by a 2/3 vote. But also the percentage can be amended by a 2/3 vote.
Yes,
And how, so this, the copy that I have obviously is going to be changed for the printing.
it already
Alright.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying the exemption amount and the percentage, how would that be? The
Well, if it's up to 3%,
Yeah,
then
right,
town
right.
meeting could say, well, we'll do 3, or they could
Exemption
say,
amount, yeah.
we'll do 1, or they
Mhm.
could say, we'll do, 1.37,
Mhm.
whatever amount you want up to 3%.
Mhm,
They can
right, right.
change is,
Okay,
And so we can change that after 2 years. If they start at 1, 2 years later, we can go to town meeting again and change. So it can move.
You want to read that sentence again, or just?
Sure.
yeah,
There's hereby imposed real estate transfer fee of up to 3% of the purchase price exceeding $1 million, the exemption amount, upon the transfer of any real property interest in any real property situated in the town of Eastham. The fee and exemption amount may be amended by a 2/3 vote of an annual or special town meeting.
okay.
Okay.
Is everybody,
That's
can
more
Paul and Roy, can you hear Rich?
Yep.
On
Right,
the,
I
on
am.
the, on the section one of the Article 6A, the changes.
Yes,
I heard him.
Okay, thanks. Do I have a motion to approve Article 6A real estate tax transfer as amended, as discussed just now?
that's a good question.
Sure.
In the state, this has failed in the past, right?
Yeah, there's several towns that have submitted similar legislation. And they're all sitting in committee.
Is there, what's the detriment? I should ask.
The detriment of submitting this?
Yeah.
There's no real detriment.
Or as far as people that don't like it, what's their views on it as far as,
Well, there's always, the lobby is the real estate lobby.
because they think it's gonna.
The realtors don't
overprice the
like it.
property to do vegetable.
Yeah, I think they'd like it because then the purchase price,
Yeah.
well, I guess, the purchase price doesn't change. It's a separately recorded fee, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't get any extra commission on it or anything like that.
And the town selectmen choose how the distribution of money goes. Yeah, right.
In our case, the distribution is housing trust or wastewater stabilization. And that's determined by the select board, how they want to allocate the proceeds.
Are there any other questions on the 6A article? Do I have a motion to approve of the Article 6A?
Motion to.
To recommend.
Steve? I'm putting down Steve as first and Patty is second. And all in favor?
Well,
Article
Mary,
6A. Yeah.
before we do that, because I'm gonna vote no. So let me explain why.
Okay.
I'm in favor of affordable housing. I'm in favor of the water stabilizations fund. I've been talking to my neighbors who don't have much money other than what's in their house. So their house semi-rich, maybe sort of kinda, and they don't have anything. And to them, the 3% is a big number. That if their house ends up selling for $1.5 million, which is not going to be unreasonable in a couple of years, it's $15,000, and that $15,000 they say is going to hurt. So 1% they don't have any problem with. Over that, we went back and forth, and I said, okay, it's a good point to me.
Just to be clear though, Paul, yeah, I think it could be impactful, but it's paid by the buyer, not by the seller.
Right, but to their point, the $15,000, the buyer's going to say it's coming out of that, so I'm going to bid 15,000 less.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I got you.
You know, that point they raised. I said, well, it's being paid by the buyer, and they said, but they're going to bid less. And I said, yeah, you're right. So
It would affect the sale process.
mhm.
Well, I think it affects the value, the overall valuation, because the money is going for taxes rather than to the buyer and benefiting the buyer and thereby the seller. So that makes sense. Paul,
Mhm.
it's probably why it's been voted down.
Has it never been voted down or just doesn't make it out of committee?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, I don't think there's been a straight up vote. So it was in the last affordable housing bond bill. He got stripped out at the last minute. Probably because they figured they didn't have the votes to pass the bond bill with it in it, so they took it out. And I think the request of our state senator for us to have this legislation is to have multiple towns submitting it so that the state legislature makes a determination it's something that municipalities want. And so therefore they ought to pass a standalone bill that's a local option for all towns in the state to be able to adopt.
Is this something that's on Beacon Hill? Is that, or is it a statewide thing that they're trying to?
Yeah, that's what got dropped out of the affordable housing bill, was these provisions, similar provisions.
And just so people know, having been through this, if they don't make it out of committee, they don't get voted on the floor by December 31st of every year, things have to start all over again. So it can be really frustrating and it can take years. I worked on something else that was, I thought, easy peasy, and it took 5 years.
Yep, no, that's our, same thing with our East End Community Fund that we finally passed. Took 2 years.
And the charter took 3.5.
A long time.
Like bylaws. Scary bylaws.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve, Article 6A. All in favor of Article 6A? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. And you are abstaining or a no, Paul?
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, so that's 8, 1, 0. Okay. Write that down. 8, 1, 0. Okay, I'm going to go on to the other articles that we still have, Article 8, B through H. Eight B through H are the articles being presented by the Community Preservation Act Committee. Would people like to vote on each one individually? Would people like to vote on all of them at once? It's up to you.
I think we have to vote on them individually because
No,
we don't, okay.
no.
Well,
Like they're,
yeah, it never made sense to me to not take them individually.
Two,
We have our own, vote reported to the.
yeah.
So we just vote separate.
Yep, that's fine.
and
Point of curiosity, did the select board vote on these?
Yes, they have.
And
They voted them all at once.
They approved them.
So it'll be 9, 5.
my only concern is sometimes, or I'll speak for myself, when I get the warrant, I don't necessarily, what the select board voted, because there's usually unanimity and they hash things out together. And that comes to the unanimity I was with the finance committee. And if there's, for me, it's interesting if there's split votes, so.
Mhm. Yeah, as Jackie said, the select board has voted. And they voted 8A through 8H 5-0. So why don't we proceed to go through each one? Let me see, so we're gonna start with 8B and go through to 8H. 8B is 580 Massasoit Road. And they're looking for 760,000 for the building, in particular for putting in a third floor rental apartment to be a studio and a second floor 1-bedroom apartment, which would also be a rental.
I have sort of a question.
Mhm.
This is a large dollar amount, so I watched the committee review this. And the gist that I got, because I saw that one person voted against it.
That
So
was me.
I know, I didn't want to say that. Well, I wanted, I guess, hear your thinking, but my impression from the committee was they all thought it was an expensive project as well, and it is when people see these things at town meeting. But I thought Paul Lag made one really good point. I wanted to confirm this. He said right now the cost per unit of housing for affordable housing is about $650,000 a unit. I don't know if that's the average size unit, if that would be like a 1 or 2 bedroom, but
No, that's, so that's one of the key points to this is even in a larger housing development, multi-unit development, Like, some of the references were some of the projects in Provincetown, Chatham,
Mhm.
they're local projects. So these are what you would think would be more cost effective and more affordable to develop are costing the 6 to 650
650.
average cost. So
So we're getting.
from our point of view, getting 2 units for 760 is pretty cost
Going-
effective. Even though it sounds like a lot of money to all of us, I agree, but it is what it is nowadays. And I think the larger point, in addition to the cost per unit being relatively low, is we have an asset that we own. We own this building and it's underutilized, and we want to fully utilize it and have that building done
Done.
so
Yeah.
we can move on to other projects. Right now, it's an underutilized building. It's a thrift shop for the COA. And we ought to finalize and finish that building and get it up to the condition it needs to be in so we can properly maintain it over the years. And it'll be a 30-year plus asset for the town.
Right, and the other thing he talked about too with housing is that it fills the need of the small scale housing,
Mhm.
which, I really like too. We need the bigger 30, 40 units at a time, but it's really nice to have 2 units here, 1 unit here, one scattered here, and all around town, all around
Well,
the entire
it's-
town. So this kind of does that too, I thought.
I think that's a good point too. We've talked about this all the time. And I'm sure the Housing Trust does too. And, you hear it in the community. Nobody, when you go to propose a big development, why are you building a big development?
Yeah.
So, if you could scatter them throughout town, and then perhaps it's not impacting any one neighborhood or area of town as much as significantly as a big development might. So, we probably think that a combination approach of mid-sized developments sprinkled throughout town with a bunch of ones and twos here and there throughout the rest of the town in, established neighborhoods probably is a good approach for Eastham.
And I think, we're just in it now. We purchased the building to save the historic structure. But we're trying to make it as useful as possible. And is it expensive? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if we don't do it, then what are we stuck with? And do we keep the building and just do the historic piece of it? And then sell it to someone else who wants to, I don't know what to do with it if we don't develop
Do
those 2
housing.
units of housing. I guess that's where I'm stuck.
Right, and 2 units of housing is better than no units of housing. We're not.
They're gonna be great
Yeah.
apartments for housing, and we need stuff on the smaller side too. So I don't know. That's where we trust me, we eliminated it altogether. And then we brought it back because, I just don't know. It's not like there's going to be a developer who's going to approach us and say, let me turn these into 2 housing units for $300,000. If we thought we could attract anyone to do it, we would give it to someone to do it.
Well, and then where we started with this too, and I kind of already forget where we started, but we were piecing parts. There was going to be a request for fixing something, I forget. And it's like, well, if you fix that something,
Yeah, then you have to do
then
this.
you had to do other things, but then you still didn't have a finished building and you didn't have 2 units. So it's like, well, what's the point? Let's go big and just get it done.
What are we into it for now? Just the purchase?
Close to
price?
2 billion.
No,
Yes,
It's a-
we paid 450,000 for the building.
Right.
We approved 740,000 last year, and now we have
haven't spent
760.
$740,000, Mary.
No, I'm just saying that's what was approved by the. by the-
Oh, okay. I
by the
thought he
town.
was saying what
No,
actual money has already gone into it.
So that money hasn't been spent, but it's
It's a-
encumbered,
Yes.
so it will be spent. And that, well,
Well, if
This-
this gets defeated,
no, if this passes,
then we'll spend it.
we'll spend this
Yes,
from last year
yes,
theoretically for the historic
yeah,
restoration part, and then this for the housing.
right.
And that'll be about $2 million.
That's not quite, is it? No, the total was 740 and this is 760.
740, 760 and
So that's
450.
It's 400.
Close to 2.
So 740 is
760 and
1.5.
450.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think Paul Lagg's point is, it isn't, we wanted to purchase the building because it was a historic structure. Now we're trying to figure out how to make it the most useful historic structure that it can be. But I get it, you know, it's expensive, and if the town doesn't want it, the town doesn't want it, but.
What about, maybe Mary wants to speak, because I heard, maybe it was her objection or question about there's gonna be some impact to the thrift shop because of the extent of the renovations.
Well, they'd have to move-
ADA.
They'd have to move out. And so the plan is to move them to Town Center Plaza where the old bike shop is.
Temporary.
And then when the building's refurbished, and they'll move back with a nice newer space what's ADA compliant. Which is what the last year money was for, was the historic renovation
Right.
and the gift shop.
Oh, so that money goes
So
towards
that'll
that
go
anyway,
towards-
so that.
Right, so
Makes it less.
the town already approved money to do the historic renovation. So when we got bids to do that work, it's like, why are we doing half a job? When it be, and then why were we gonna come back 5 years later to do the second and third floor? Why don't we just do, it's more cost effective to have the contractor mobilize and come out once and do the full job and be done.
How complete are the plans at this point?
They're complete.
They're complete,
Yeah.
so. the
Well, they're not-
numbers are fairly firm. And that
Oh, I
includes-
don't know,
No,
Peter,
no,
Does
that's,
it include ramps and all the ADA stuff?
yes,
So they looked at
yes.
that,
And we've actually added to make, so that we didn't have to take space away from the thrift shop, we've added things on the outside, which means removing some things and moving a couple of windows and stuff like that. So that's more expensive, but it also retains what they already have.
How much money have we spent all together?
Right now, we've only spent $450 plus, everything else was paid for by insurance. Somebody drove into the building that was paid for by insurance.
The moving, literally moving.
Let's
parts.
plan B.
Yeah,
with
we
this.
have bollards. We have bollards there.
You don't have a microphone.
The original.
Oh,
amount,
geez.
and then it was 450, then last year
They
it
can't hear me when I
was
do it.
40, and then
The other thing that,
It's fine, okay,
without-
I'll remember that.
the other thing nice about it though, and I think this came out of the meeting too, is that it's a historic building, so it's a little more expensive to work on because it's a historic building. But it's kind of nice to keep a historic building because everybody's leveling historic buildings on the Cape, probably because they're so expensive. So,
So the second floor, third floor, empty now,
Yeah.
there's nobody.
And the only reason right now we can't use the second floor is because there's no fire suppression and it's a multi-use building. So today's code requires that you can't have housing and a store without fire suppression.
so
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you're gonna move the thrift shop over to the
Town center
town
plaza.
center.
Yeah.
And then long-term, you plan to move it someplace else, don't you?
Long-term, we'd move it back to the thrift store.
You're gonna leave it there,
Yeah.
even if we develop the town center there, to move the thrift store?
Well, they are now happy. They were upset about moving to the Central Plaza, but now I think now they've seen that space and how big it is.
Mhm.
They're happier about it, so, but
So why don't we leave them there and redevelop the first floor and have even more housing?
because that is the tiniest lot on the planet. The thrift store, the 580 is a tiny, tiny lot, and it has an existing septic system that's a 2-bedroom system. So we can't have more than 2 bedrooms.
And those are one bedroom apartments,
Yeah.
that's what's planned.
So we'd have to connect it to sewer, and it's not on the sewer plan. It's not it's not anywhere near the sewer.
And that's also, I think, part of the historic use, not necessarily a thrift shop, but
I was gonna
commercial
ask about
first
that.
floor.
But it
Sounds
is,
like
it really is.
There's
There's like the building, and then there's like a little tiny spot where the septic is and some parking, and that's it. There's no.
No, you're right, Kate, it was passed
It
as,
was passed as
um,
a historic building to be used by.
well, the oldest continuously used,
Mitten-making.
commercial property
So
in
we want
Cape
to
or
retain
East
the
Cape.
historical use as well as, and we've talked about it, like if the thrift shop didn't want to move back in there, we could use that as, affordable artist space, affordable business space, what do you call that
As long as
when
it doesn't
people
have
work
to-
together and they
A
rent like a
co-op.
space?
Co-op.
Co-op work.
Something like that. We could
Co-op working
that
space.
would keep it as a
Library.
multi-use.
Library trustee
Like
gift
an
shop.
artist cooperative or something like that, or even something for the.
Why can't we put a
COA.
compostable toilet in there? We
You
do
wanna say that a little
Yeah, more
louder?
COA space.
We're going down a rabbit hole now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it
just-
just happens, like, I think Paul reminding us at the CPA meeting, because I was going down the rabbit hole too. You know, we bought this because we were trying to save a historic building, now we're trying to make it useful. Is it expensive? Yes. But I don't know any other way to do it, and I don't think it would be great if we just left it empty. So. I mean, we could sell it, but then someone could tear it down. So that would defeat the purpose.
Well, the town wanted to buy it and preserve it.
And they
So-
voted to buy it.
And I think even at that point, there was talk of putting apartments.
Mhm.
You know, so they bought it
That's
with
what we were hoping.
the
yeah.
housing as
Yeah.
part of it.
So do you have a bid for the 750 to do the renovations?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So
Without a
theoretically,
contingency.
Oh, no, we don't have a bid. We have a project cost estimate.
Yeah.
We have a.
Plans.
We have
don't have a
plans.
not a bit.
That's-
We're not going out to bid until we have a funding source.
Hmm.
Right?
But the idea we're thinking is with this amount, it should be enough to cover everything.
Yes.
And
Mary
It's-
doesn't think so.
it's,
Bravo and hallelujah.
Well, I just know what happened with the town hall here. Everything was.
How come you don't
Went
mention the
way
water
over.
project, Mary? That's under
I
budget.
know what happened with the high school. Look what happened with that, with the contingency. I mean, that was way under too. I'm just saying that. Everything is, to get a price today for something down the road is not.
Yeah.
Feasible.
But then do you keep kicking it down the road and making it more and more expensive
Not
each
yet.
time? I think,
Well-
at some point we have to go in good faith.
we do. But maybe the
Right.
point is, we should be careful the next time we're trying to save a historic building.
Well, that's the lesson, isn't it?
But that's why we never saved them. That's why we didn't save the cute little house on Dyer Prince, which is now a horrible new house. And, I'm sure the people that own it.
They're listening to them.
Nobody's watching.
But this is.
Like flash.
So I want to say, since I've been here, the 4 times at least, we've tried to save a structure and have not been able to do it because it wasn't practical to do it.
Right.
Well,
And I don't know if this is totally practical, but I don't think it's so impractical that it's out of the scope of reasonableness to have a tri-level place cost $2 million in this insanity of a world that we're living in. I don't think is that out of the ordinary. And unless we do it, then I think we will have to go all the way back. I think we'll have to go all the way backwards, because why would we just have it be a thrift shop with nothing over it?
If it didn't pass, what would happen to the funds that were appropriated last year?
They just stay where they are. They're still.
We'd have to decide whether we want to move forward with the
the
historic renovation,
Renovation or not.
which, town meeting did pass to have that done. They wanted to buy the building as a historic property and they wanted to renovate it to maintain it being historic. Then we asked the question, why are we spending all this money for 1/3 of the building?
We shouldn't have asked that question,
We should,
evidently.
it just doesn't make sense in my mind to have an underutilized, unfinished asset. So we're gonna not do the whole building because I'm trying to save a couple bucks there.
Well, the fact is that we've got this idea that people are talking about, we need more housing. It's what we hear most, right? So.
We get criticized the most.
Here's something that we're trying. Is it perfect? No. But it's a good faith attempt.
And I think it goes to the nature of the CPC, and you get this in every town I've ever been involved with. People lose their minds over the historic property purchases, because they tend to be expensive, and guess what? They're old because they're historic, so they tend to cost a lot of money to fix up. But that's the point. You got to set aside 10% every year for historic purposes, because the state, when they passed the CPC, this was the point of the CPC, to save historic structures.
that was gonna be my point.
So
the money, all the funding.
It's got to go to somewhere, some historic program,
Well, and
programs.
It's, it satisfies two of the criteria for CPA, the
Right.
housing and historic, so, and the money's coming from CPA, so. It'd be different if it was coming out of the general fund, for sure. Can the town sell a property that they got with CPA funds?
I think we probably
Probably
could,
something
we'd
to
have to,
process.
Put
have to
it back in.
return the money.
I just remember last year, the town meeting, remember the schoolhouse?
Yes.
People, they saw that price tag and they said, that's a lot for a museum, that's not open much. I feel like this will get support because it has two housing
Right.
units.
In two purposes.
Two,
historic
and
preservation
council and a thrift shop. It's kind of a cool, funky place for council on aging thrift
It's
store.
and reasonable to expect that people are gonna be happy about this ticket item. But it honestly, it will satisfy a lot of things, and I think it'll make it not only beautiful, but useful for a long time in the future, and that's probably the best, I think it's the best we can do. So that's why, obviously, Rich and I are here promoting it. I don't wanna, I don't said to the CBA committee, I don't wanna be a salesperson, but I think this is the best we can do. And we'd like to be able to do it. And if the town doesn't wanna do it, then yeah, we're gonna have to kind of revisit the whole thing again, I think.
Yeah, and again, I think everybody always complains about money, which I get. But at the end of the day, next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm gonna be real happy that they're walking down the beach at Nauset Light and they got this beautiful painted lighthouse that was funded with CPC money.
Yeah.
And they got a historical society museum and they got this quaint COA thrift shop that's been there historically for however many years it's been there. People like these things ultimately, but it's the quibbling about the money that's always the issue.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, we can't.
These are things that make the community really.
And that's why we
point of
got suckered
CPA.
into buying
A little bit.
it, because it's charming.
Some
It's
of my
totally
favorite
charming.
CPA projects, I think all of them are historic preservation ones. The campus here with the town hall, the windmill, I think
Chapel in the
number
Pines.
one. And it didn't cost $60,000 to reshingle that. I mean, it
How
was
long ago?
not pretty long, only like 5 years ago or something, yeah. But it's beautiful, it's a beautiful windmill. Anyway, it's the best looking windmill ever. in my
It's on
opinion.
every
The
paper.
lines, but the carpenter did a fantastic job on, I'm saying, it's not an easy project. And then the Chapel in the Pines further down, also did a wonderful job on that. It's with Daly House Museum.
But Mary's right. I mean, this is a tricky project, just like town hall was. And I
Yeah.
think it's not totally desirable because it's got so many different little pieces to it. It's a tough one for a contractor to bid on because it's not, you go in, you build something, you leave. It's dismantling the interior of buildings to do plumbing and
I always
suppression
tried to
and-
do jobs like this on a cost plus basis.
Yeah.
Is there asbestos there? Have they found asbestos?
We have not found any asbestos.
That's amazing,
Might be
to
lead
be quite
paint.
honest with you.
I think so, because like that's later on, isn't asbestos like in the 40s and 50s and
Yes.
60s?
Yeah,
Yeah,
could be lead paint.
Yeah,
in
and the
there.
lead
Probably
paint.
is lead.
Yeah.
probably
there
lead
was
paint.
lead paint on
Yeah.
the stairs. We did do the lead paint.
Um,
But
Only,
it wasn't upstairs, it was just on the stairway.
In the stairwell.
only other question I have, Mary, about it is, the, why the funds are being taken out of the undesignated fund rather than,
Because there's nothing, there's nothing in the preservation
Yeah, we spent it all.
budget.
my
no,
fault.
that's not what you told me. You
With
said there
the-
was 437,000 in. And then there's gonna be another, with this additional amount, there's gonna be another 379 going in this year.
Yeah, well, we're. Get my records.
Rich said it was, I think, yeah, I guess the idea is, because you wanna steward that, to build up that.
Right, I
community
think that's the
housing
answer.
Reserve.
We want,
Yeah, yes.
we have some
Sure.
significant, at some point, a lot of it's dependent on wastewater. But we know that there's be significant development at Tea Time and Town Center Plaza. at some point in the relative near future, and it's gonna be a lot of money, and will require a developer to come in, and hopefully they can cover a lot of the costs, but it'll have to be subsidized.
Right.
And we need to, we can't get all that money that we need for that in 1 year. So we need to build up money to be available for that.
But my point, I guess, is it could build up just as well in the undesignated fund. But that's my own little pet peeve.
Yeah, as of 12/31/24, there was a little over $437,000 in the housing fund reserve.
And with this, the 30%,
No, that's not with the 30%.
well, with that, that's another 379.
Yeah, and we're doing that. It is for the very reason that Rich just commented on.
We're setting it aside for a rainy day.
So we have it.
No, it's not a rainy day.
No,
It's
no,
a,
it's-
it's a, you see the storm coming.
It's what everyone wants. It's what everyone's telling us they want at tea time, right?
Yeah, housing.
Yeah, so.
I always liked the idea of, when I was on CPA, of using up those reserve funds first, so that you had flexibility. So you can get stuck, for instance,
Mhm.
changing the subject.
And that is something that we normally do.
But and I kind of understand why you might not want to do it in this case. But the recreation reserve is a good example,
Mhm.
because that's gonna be up to over 400,000 now, and there just aren't that many rec projects, so that money, well, I think we found out that the recreation reserve, the town meeting can claw that back. The other three, they can't get the 10% out of, but we found out that we could get this extra 20%.
Right, so what Peter's talking about is if he, in this case for in Article 8A, you did 30% to housing of the next year's receipts. The minimum you were required to do by law is 10%.
Mhm.
So since town meeting votes on these and they're voting more than the legal minimum, that's a town meeting decision. Town meeting can always reverse their own decision at a subsequent town meeting. So if we appropriate 30% to housing and all of a sudden, some big thing comes up that we want to do instead, town meeting can vote to undo the 30%. They can't bring it below the 10. The extra 20% that was done can be reappropriated for any of the other CPA purposes. And in case some of you might not realize, recreation isn't technically a legal, it's an allowable reservation you can make, but it's not doesn't have a minimum that you're required to. Open space, housing, and historic preservation
Historic preservation.
are the three required minimums. Rec's
There's
kind of an
there's
extra.
Three
Right.
categories that are required for 10%.
Okay,
Open space, historic preservation, and
affordable housing,
affordable housing, right?
community housing, they call it.
Community
Community
housing.
housing,
Yeah.
which they're doing at 30 instead of 10.
Yeah, instead of 10.
Okay.
And this, the other thing about the community housing is you have to go by the CPA rules for income qualifying, which is up to 100% of AMI for moderate income. So
The-
what they call it, working people that make more than 100%, but still can't afford to buy a house or live in East.
So if we use CPA funds in the future for, say, a housing development at tea time, and I'm just making up numbers just to make the example work, but if you say you do 50 units, CPA isn't obviously gonna pay for all of that. But basically what you're doing is you're income restricting a percentage of those units, right? So let's say the money from the CPA makes up 10% of the 50, so that means 5 units are now restricted for the 100% of AMI because of the CPA contribution. But the other 45 could be whatever you want, depending on the different funding sources. But Peter, to your point on the unrestricted, I guess what I would suggest, I hear you say this and we've talked about it a little bit. But I guess the best we could do is I can work with Mary and the CPC over the next year and kind of fine tune their practice and their policy as to what are we really going for, and then properly communicate that to everybody so that we're all on the same page as what we're trying to do. And it may not be in the all on agreement, but at
Right,
least we'll have a, kind of have a plan and we'll know what the plan is.
you know.
And we
what else?
can debate the merits of it or not, you know?
Sure, it might be nice to have somebody, maybe the housing coordinator, come into our meetings next round and talk about this sort of stuff, because it'd be also good for me to know, for everybody to know, I think, how the housing trust fits into the puzzle and how much money they're sitting on. It'd be good for the finance committee to know, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, because last year when they had asked for monies, the Affordable Housing Trust had asked for monies from the CPA committee. I asked Carolyn, at that time, Carolyn McPherson, to put together a grid of exactly what monies they've received over the years and where it's been spent, and all the monies that they use aren't all just from the CPA committee, so and where they've used it and what's not used. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why you ended up at the 30% for the CPC, which was kind of also in lieu of sending it to the housing trust, in which case, once it goes to the housing trust, you do lose the ability to claw it
Yeah,
back,
that's
so to
right,
speak,
right,
so to
right.
speak.
Right, if the monies that are put in the CPA for housing have to be approved by us, by the select board, and by town meeting.
Right.
The monies that are put into the Affordable Housing Trust don't have to be approved by any of those entities.
So they have to be, those entities have to approve money being put in there,
Mhm.
but once it's in there, they don't have to
That's
approve
right,
the
that's
uses,
right.
that's great.
That's the whole point of having a trust.
Well, they can act quicker, I think. But no, maybe it's just as important to have some money like what we're trying to set up with the reserve fund, that town meeting has final say over, not just the trust.
Think like with Nauset Green. We CPA put in I think 350, I think Housing Trust did at least 350. The town had the land and the water connection. Orleans and Wellfleet each gave us $100,000, but it was, it was at least $1.5 million of our funding that was required.
Right.
For those units. And that was, now 5 years ago. So I know the Cloverleaf was several $1 million short, and they're going to be able to break ground, but they've had to scramble for more funding. So it's not getting less expensive for these new developments either. And I know the last Tea Time development, I mean, one of the problems we had with that developer was that he wanted $2.5 million just to do the first phase of the Tea Time project, which was only 40 units. So I think we're going to need millions, not hundreds of thousands, to contribute to a couple of, if we want a couple of different unit buildings at 75 more or more units.
Mayor, on 8B, I don't think we have we don't have any motions on the table.
I'll move that we recommend 8B.
Peter is voting to recommend 8B. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's Patty. Is there any further discussion on this article? All in favor of Article 8B? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. I'm a no. You're a no. 7, 2, 0. Okay, 7, 2, 0. Okay, we're on to our Article 8B, 8C, excuse me. Move this forward. HC is Cape Housing Institute, and they've been running their institute for, I don't know, I've gone to their meetings for the last 6, 7 years. And they have workshops, etc. The CPA committee has been approving those workshops along with about every other town on the Outer Cape, including Orleans, Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, Eastham, Orleans, Chatham, Brewster, etc. All are giving a similar amount of money to run the various workshops. Is there any question on Article 8C?
Did anybody from Eastham attend this year? Do we know? You did this year?
Yeah,
See
quite a
where-
few. Carolyn McPherson has attended, I've attended. Rachel Butler has attended. I'm trying to think who else.
Strauss, maybe.
Paul, Stacy.
I'm just thinking of new people, I guess, because at some point, haven't you heard it before? And
Mm,
I just
well-
wondered when it,
Some is
It's always useful.
is over again, but every town, as you know, changes
memberships.
personnel, so.
Is the information new each year or is it the same?
No, it depends upon what's going on. More recently, it's been on zoning.
Maybe we should make it, broadcast it, make it available so that people can go.
Mhm.
Maybe people don't know that it's going on.
Yeah, I think there's information about it out in,
Well, I don't think it's just the cost of hosting training sessions.
no,
It's, the staff,
The
just having CDP to have someone that this is part of their job.
sometimes they're state people
Mm.
from the state, from the housing operation, different housing.
Does any
Facility.
staff from here go?
Mhm.
And it's valuable.
Are there any other questions on the Cape Housing Institute? Do I have a motion to approve 8?
I move approval on Article 8C. Second.
Oh, that's Roy. Do I,
Ron.
Yes.
Ron is second, okay. Is there any further discussion on 8C? All in favor of 8C? 9-0. On to 8D. Eastham Elementary School Playground. They are looking for monies, 55,186 for a specific piece of equipment on their playground. It's called a whirligig, and it's something that the children climb on. This is sort of phase 2 of monies for the Eastham Elementary School playground. Last year, we gave them about a similar amount of monies, and that was mainly for upgrading of the equipment. Some of the equipment was really in bad shape and it needed to be fixed and upgraded. But as I said, this article is just for a specific piece of equipment for the playground.
Well, it says in the summary that there's also for certified wood chips, 2 15-foot benches, and replacing painting worn parts. Plus the whirly Q.
And the really cute, yeah.
The whirly gig is something that you find in amusement parks that sends you up in the air and spins you around. I was thinking, you don't want to do that to kids.
I did a search on the picture, it looks like.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Don't have the teachers that appreciate
Pull it up on my phone, but I passed the test.
And this playground is used not just by the Eastham Elementary School itself, the students, but obviously they have an after-school program. They have a program in the summer. It's
Really
used by families in town.
It's a great.
And there's plenty of parking there, so it's
That's good playground.
a good,
That's it.
I'll make a
It's-
motion that
It's safe.
we approve this.
Kate, okay, do I have, Kate has made a motion to approve Article 8D. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Patty? Is there any further discussion on Article 8D? All in favor of whirligigs?
Whirly cues
Whirly cues, 1, 2, it's 9-0.
and benches.
Ron and I just did a little analysis, it looks safe.
Oh, that, yeah.
That looks like fun.
It's not Coney Island.
Oh, dear.
It's
cool. It is, yeah. You, when they put it in, Kate, you can go over and try it out.
Well, some kids.
Not to beat a dead horse and go backwards, but if we introduced a whirly queue to 580 Massasoit between the second and third floor, do you think that would go over better?
Instead
the
of instead of a stairwell?
Then it could be 3 categories of CPA.
Outside.
That's right, yeah, very good, because we all need exercise.
The rock and the rope wall.
Yeah, right.
Good idea. With harnesses.
Oh, dear. Okay, 8E, folks, Wiley Park Trailhead kiosks, and this is for 2 kiosks over at Wiley Park, and they feel that they really need the information, so everybody that uses that facility knows what the rules and regulations are. There've been a number of situations, or I should say issues of walkers and dog walkers and et cetera, and this is a way to let everybody know what the rules are for the Wiley Park. So we're talking about 11,000 here.
I'll make that motion.
That's Kate. Do I have a second?
second.
That's Patty. Do I have further discussion on the Wiley Park kiosks? All in favor of the Wiley Park kiosks? 9-0. Okay, we're on to 8F, historic property surveys, and this is something that the town has been doing long before I was involved with the CPA, and probably when you were involved too, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they try to do put together information regarding all houses that are over 75 years of age. And of course, that changes every year. I mean, different houses get into the category as time goes on. And they do hire, it's outside auditor, I would not call an auditor, but a surveyor, thank you, surveyor. And this is based on so much per house. So they put together they bid and say, we'll do these many houses and it costs this much per house, and it comes up to the 40,000. As I said, the town has been doing this for a long time. Do I have a motion to approve the historic property surveys?
Motion to approve.
Patty? Do I have a second on the historic property surveys?
Ron did.
Second.
Oh, Ron, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of 8F, the historic property surveys? 9-0. 8G. Let's see what that one is. 8G is open space, 20 Deacon Pane. And that is for a piece of land for $50,000. And the Eastham Conservation Fund is paying for the majority of the cost. And this is to help them along with the cost. I think there's if you're on the second page, it shows you, there's a map.
It says here too, for the protection of freshwater pond and wetlands.
Yep.
So.
A lot of trust land in that area.
I'm sorry, Jackie?
There's a lot of trust land in that area. There's a
Yeah.
lot of wetlands there.
Mhm. Yeah,
And the
this
cranberry
this
bog.
piece is a part of a bigger piece to be added to
Yeah.
an earlier piece, I should say. Do I have a motion to approve $50,000 for open space for 20 Deacon Pane? I will make that motion. Do I have a second for 20 Deacon Pane? Fred? Any further discussion? All in favor of 20 Deacon Pane open space? 9-0. And the last one is 8H. And this is an interesting project. It's called Forward, but it stands for, if you look after the word forward, it's friends or relatives with autism and related disabilities. And it is sort of an addition to a project that has already been accomplished, where 8 individuals have been selected and are already living in the community housing project. The land, they own this Forward, or owns the land where the additional 8 housing units will be built, so the land is already owned. And they do have a very specific program that they follow to figure out who is going to be getting one of the 8 rooms. And there are different people from different towns on the Cape. It's not just, it's in Dennis, but it's not just Dennis people. It's Cape people, Cape individuals. And we're not the only people that they've come to for monies.
So are a number of towns all giving $50,000?
Yeah, a number of towns, yeah.
I have a few typos in this one, you know, we didn't get this far, but the title. I'm wondering why the whole thing is in parentheses. Maybe what it meant was to put forward and then put in parentheses, friends or relatives.
Well, all the articles are in parentheses after the article number, right?
They are?
Yeah.
Okay.
The next one.
Oh, yeah. So, what is it? Okay, how about the first sentence? The Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Reserve, I think is the actual. Instead of Community Housing Fund Reserves.
Okay.
Right.
Then down in the summary, about the 4th line from the bottom, it says no Eastham CPA. I think the
Needs
word
funds.
funds
Yeah.
were requested for phase 1. That's all.
Paul and Roy, can you hear Peter's comments?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
When will this construction begin?
As soon
This
as they've received the monies, that, yeah, as soon as possible.
It's
And do you
expected to
know,
be
does
completed the end
anybody
of-
know how much we contributed last year?
No, we have not contributed to this project before.
Okay,
And it says the Dennis Planning Board has already approved the special permit and the homes are expected to be available in late 2025.
Mhm.
So it sounds like construction is imminent.
Yeah, right.
you need a
They
motion
have
to
the- they
move
have the
forward with
land.
this?
They have the land, so,
Start now,
yeah, that's right.
buy everything now before.
Yeah.
Do I have
I'll
any
make a
other?
motion to move approval with Article 8H.
Okay, Roy has made a motion to approve Article 8H. Do I have a second on 8H?
Second.
That's Kate. Is there any further discussion on 8H? All in favor of 8H? 9-0. And I think that completes all of the articles that
Rich break off the block.
Thank you. All righty, let me put this together a minute. We have, the next item on the agenda is the work that Paul has done for the article that will be in the warrant, our letter from the finance committee. And I know, I want to thank Paul for working on this. This is time consuming. And I think we've all had a chance to look it over from the original draft. And then I know an assortment of people have sent you their comments, which he has now put together. And let me see, I'm just looking to see. So I guess I'm just looking at the end, Paul, first, sort of, as a result of our discussions and votes today.
Right, I'll send Rich an insert right after we're done, saying what we did last year, that we approved, in the letter, it'll say we turned down the outside audit not on 9. And then the insert will say we approved the rest of the warrant articles, but there were 3, and I'll list them, 6A, 8A, and 8B, where there was not unanimity.
Right, okay, yeah, terrific. Do people have comments on the draft as our latest, call it our latest draft?
I just have one comment that I actually sent to Paul. I think it's great the way he added sort of some educational, blurbs in there and the process and, I've read it times because I've learned from it. I'm still learning.
Yeah. So first of all, Rich did the heavy lifting on that. But what happened, I just thought we needed to address Article 9, which I know was an attack on Rich and indirectly us. And I thought it was unfair to both attack him and us. So that's all.
Well, thanks. I think you did a really, really great job with it.
Thank you.
I hope everybody reads it. I'm preparing a test. Everybody has to read this test. It's just so good.
Thank you, Patty.
Maybe we can highlight it.
Well, people do read your letters. They really do read the letters.
I can remember having a discussion about whether people do or don't.
Oh, I think they
Read what's in the warrant.
To sit there, right?
I know.
And it's in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just think they'll get a lot out of it, out of the process.
Yeah. But
Maybe-
Jackie, to your point, everybody on my street reads it and then comes by my house and says, "What? What's this?" So I will speak for the residents of Mary Chase Road. They read it.
No, they do, they read it. And the articles are different. Some people don't read any of the articles, but I think the letters and the summaries, they read.
The summaries, yeah.
And I hope they also read the strategic plan part at the end of the warrant. Yeah.
Just so you know, my town summary, my town response to Article 9A is 5 pages long.
Wow.
I got it down from 7.5.
No stone unturned.
So there was so much
There's a lot
stuff
of-
in there.
Different pieces that you were
I just,
tackling.
yeah, I felt like so I do want to have you read, I have a paragraph on the CPA that I want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that was sort of a part of what they were, that we weren't using our money for.
It's contradictory. I think they say, you're not using all your money,
Right,
but you're
right.
spending too much money.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
But there was a lot there that Patty and I were talking about. Many towns on the Outer Cape have done this study. And we both knew 1, and many towns in the Outer Cape, there are 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
several.
the snarky part of me thought, well, you don't live here full time, so you don't know that there are 4 towns, but it's.
So I'm just asking if anybody has any other comments or questions or additions, deletions, all those things associated with the letter for the warrant.
You need a motion?
Yes, I do.
I'll make a motion that we use the draft finance committee report for the town warrant.
And Paul, you said that you would be putting together the sort of the additional comments as a result of this meeting today.
I will get it to Rich within a half hour after we break.
He might want to have dinner first.
He doesn't have to do anything with it. I'm just gonna get it to him.
I will second the motion as far as the warrant letter is concerned. Any further discussion? All in favor of the letter? 9-0. And I want to thank you again, Paul
Yeah.
and Rich for working together on this. Let's see.
When do we get to see your 5-page summary?
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing, since you mentioned me.
I made a copy because I wanted you guys to look at the CPA of you, to look at that piece, because it's not exact. And I know Mary's gonna get frustrated with it, because I think I say, we spent over $12 million on these things. But it's more like 13 point something, but
At least, yeah, it was 11 back when I was on.
oh, I'm just talking about in the 10-year period. that
Oh.
they're
You're just talking about CPA monies.
Yes.
Yeah,
And family support, I mean, that's what I
Oh,
worked for,
yeah,
it
yeah.
took me forever, I had to get all that.
Yeah.
there was a lot
There were
Yeah.
a lot of points in that, though.
of
Many, many.
and there was a lot of snark in that too,
Yeah,
on their side,
Yeah.
and
short-term.
somebody here
Planning.
said, somebody's response was really good. It was very clear about, okay, and this is really about the residential tax exemption.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I
Call it what
started
it
the
is.
summary. I moved it to the beginning. I had it somewhere buried in the middle. And I would start with, this is it. This is what the residential tax exemption is. And if you want to see how it's going to affect your particular property, go to the packet that is the January 6th meeting. So I have all the
Yeah,
information,
yeah,
so
yeah.
people could actually, plug in their value and see where they lie.
Mary, did you take the vote on that?
No,
You s-
we haven't.
So you
taken-
seconded the motion. There's no vote yet then.
No, not on the letter.
Yes, I do. Yes, 9-0.
Oh.
0.
Roy made the motion. It was seconded by me and the vote was 9-0.
All right, I missed it.
I blame cataract surgery.
Every time we go through it, we find more stuff.
Okay, I'm looking at the agenda and the new business, and I have a question, Rich. Reading recently, and we're talking about family support package actually, about this, I guess the government is now slashing monies for food for it would be coming to the states. The states have been using that we've been using for the food for our elementary school.
Right.
And the monies that were in the family support package for that, we didn't really need because COVID occurred and we started getting it paid for without using our own monies.
Correct.
And we were using it for the childcare.
Babies, yeah.
Yeah, right. How would that, if that slashing occurs, how does the town have some, would the town want to use some of those monies for the food?
Because we haven't spent every penny.
Right, we have some
of
monies
the
in there.
family support package.
Right.
We can probably handle, using our reserves, like you guys do with CPA, we could handle doing a couple of years of food and then we'd have to make some decisions.
That's right, because it's not, I mean.
They could either cut the subsidy for the 3-year-olds and under,
Yeah.
or we could vote, but we'll be fine for a little while, because that was absolutely voted as part of the package.
Right, and then we didn't need it, so we used it for the childcare, and now we
We
make
saved it for 2 years, and then the
Yeah.
3rd year we used it. for the child.
childcare. So, but at some point, if we have to go back to paying for it, we're going to end up using it.
Yeah.
Or cutting back on the childcare to pay for the food.
Right.
It's so annoying.
But
Okay.
it's Massachusetts, so we can, hope that that won't be one of the first cuts that's made,
I'm sorry, Fred?
It's neither.
You're in the corner. Does anybody have any other item? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is it appropriate to ask how we as a committee feel about this RTE?
Are you asking me or are you
No, I'm
asking?
asking everybody,
Oh, oh.
but you don't wanna share it, that's fine, but I just. I mean, the town meeting people might wanna know how we feel about it. Okay,
I don't know if it's important to town meeting, but it might be important to the select board.
Hmm.
I mean, you advise them in a lot of different ways, and the finance committee has written letters to them on many different topics, and this is a financial issue, so.
Well, I mean,
I mean, I
the
think that
implication
would
in
be
the
appropriate.
RTE to me is that the populace in general can't afford to live here. They can't afford the taxes we're charging, so reducing everybody's taxes.
Excuse me, I'm gonna ask you.
Oh, if we're reducing everybody's taxes, it implies to me that the select board doesn't think that we can afford to live here, so therefore we're giving ourselves a tax break. Whereas if we really are trying to target monies to people who really need it for tax relief, there are much better ways of doing it. We all know that. So to me, it's foolish to go forward with this, but I don't mind saying that because that's the way I believe it.
Well, they have a, tax classification hearing will be in September. So you got a couple months, if you guys want to talk about it and submit your comments to the select board, I think probably be good. And, yeah,
No, I've been tempted to stand up and join the parade of people that's been.
Oh, that come forward
Complaining.
at the beginning of
Yeah.
some of the select board meetings.
Honestly, I think it would be a lot more meaningful if the finance committee has feelings, even if it's split.
Yeah.
To say what they are in some kind of way and give it to them before the tax classification. Because I think right now, everyone's starting to be, polarized. So when we're polarized, we don't listen anymore, right?
Right.
So I think letting some time go by and then doing something would probably be received better.
Right.
Because it is a split board. It's not a unanimous vote of the board either. So.
And it's completely split as it could possibly get. And where I kind of sit with this right now is that I don't feel like it's a good idea. But I'm listening to the arguments, and unfortunately, the people that are standing up and arguing against it are pushing me into a place of saying, you know what? I'm in favor of it. It's really interesting, and I'm trying to take my personal stuff out of it and think about what's best for the town. And I think we all have to be careful about making statements about how other people feel or telling people how to feel. So I'm sitting on the fence with it. It's hard.
And the board has been split ever since we started talking to them about it 5 years ago. I mean, really.
Yeah, it was
It's
never
been
5-0.
unanimous. Yeah, it's never 5-0.
No.
So
Well-
I think as we've explained it to them, and I think Rich has done so brilliantly, it's a tool that the state has given us that they have not refined over the years. So it is still, it's not a, it's not an ideal tool. It's just the one that we have.
But one of the things that, where you're getting at, it doesn't target the problem.
Right.
We don't know what the results will be if this is approved as to who that needs the benefit are actually receiving it. Or they're gonna receive it.
Right.
Who's shouldn't be getting it because they don't need it. It's
Like 97% of people are gonna get it.
Yeah,
I
But-
wish there was a box on the application that said, I'm deferring, and I would like, or a way for people to say,
That would be
I'm
good.
deferring it but I'm going to make a donation to, you know,
Community fund or
save,
something.
save the great whales off of Provincetown or something like that. I just.
For the 580 Massasoit housing. I might be walking around with a tin can.
Well, you don't have to apply for it.
Right, but I think it, would, you know, it's almost like we had these conversations in HR about, is this an active or a passive enrollment? So I feel like this should be, you, I don't know.
State law makes it active.
Right.
You have to apply every year.
Right,
You're not-
right.
But the danger is once it goes in, it won't come out.
No.
No.
So I think a lot of thought has to go into whether we actually go down that road.
And that's
Yeah.
what when people say, you know, I mean, we had someone this year who was like, well, why don't we just try it for a year? Well, that's totally unreasonable. Like, even I would be furious if my tax bill went down $300 and then the next year it went up $1,500.
Plus
Yeah.
the amount of work that it's
Yeah,
going to take
yeah,
to
yeah,
get it
yeah.
into place. I think what I have felt that's been a little disingenuous is that it's been presented around town as a 35 or 40%. Yeah, and we're talking about 5%.
Right.
First, yeah.
Right now.
Right now, though.
I understand.
Yeah.
But
You have,
with the select board, would the select board have to vote? if the
Every year.
percentage
Every year.
changes?
every year.
So you still have that layer of protection.
I'm not so sure about that.
I don't know.
You're giving everybody an opportunity to vote for a tax decrease. That's what's happening.
Right.
And I think, you know, in a targeted program, we could get enough money, you know, fund that we could pay people who need it more money than they would get with this type of relief.
No.
And you know you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah,
No, I know that, but I'm preaching to this choir. I'm looking at you, but I'm preaching to this choir.
I understand though, you know, like when, I just lost my train of thought. When we first talked about it and, I think people latched onto, what people latch onto is the fact that you can give some immediate tax relief to people whose homes are valued less. So we're assuming that, you know, the working class people have homes that are valued less, and that's what the law kind of
Mhm.
assumes.
Mhm.
And that year-round residents in resort areas or in big cities where this program is used most often have higher, everything costs more. So they pay higher bills, they pay more for everything. So I think that those are the two issues that people gravitate towards. It's not gonna create housing, it's not going to necessarily target the needy, but we know we can get the needy with some other exemptions that we have. This is just a different type of tool, and I think it gets to the point where other towns have it and they start to, you know, politically, it starts to become uncomfortable when we don't have it, is one thing. And then this, I don't know, I think the second thing is they have resisted it courageously for years now. And they've been criticized. There was an editorial in the Independent 2 years ago when they voted against it about how irresponsible they were to vote against it. And it's a way to save taxpayers' money and help year-round residents. And so at that point, I called the Independent and said, what are you doing? I mean, they are trying to do what's best for the town, not necessarily what's politically most expedient. And I give them a lot of credit for holding out for 5 years. It was surprising to me that it happened this year on a year where our taxes are going up the least.
Last year.
It's kind of a waste of it.
They always had that 60% barrier. They
Yeah.
reckon to it, and now they don't have.
So that's the only thing that surprised me is that, you know, we didn't delay it a little longer.
But the select board did vote a number of years ago that they weren't going to do anything until it was 60-40.
Right.
And
And-
we're not at 60-40.
But you also know that just like the CPA, the select board can't make votes for future boards, so every board gets to vote its own, but they did have a, a formal policy, they. just
Oh, that
about
was
like
brought
this
up
now.
at
Yeah.
the, by somebody the other day.
Actually, that gentleman who stood up was very eloquent, I thought.
Oh, 64, yeah.
I think we'll put at the bottom of every policy, we reserve the right to change our minds.
Male or
That's why
female.
it's a policy and not a law.
Oh.
I don't think anybody on the select board or anybody thinks it's a perfect, the RTE is perfect solution.
No.
But I think the people that are in favor of it are, looking around and saying, yeah, there may be better ways to do it, but they're not here yet. So this is something that we can use. So I think that's where they're coming from. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think it's a reasonable point of view.
Well, we do have the special legislation of the Resident Taxpayer Assistance Fund, the Eastham Community Fund. That is the tool that would target specific aid to
And
specific.
it is too bad we didn't have a
But-
little more time to.
It's actually,
cultivate that.
would have been nice to roll that out this year, see how it works. Then act accordingly, but.
If we had had it earlier to show how it could be helpful, it might have made it,
So-
I don't know.
Yeah.
How would we fund that?
It's funded, right now we have $50,000 in Article 4A for free cash. If we, and this was Jerry Saracel's point,
The part-time taxpayers gave us.
Right.
and my plan was to,
You'd probably keep
actively market it. I wanted to promote it as, community
Yeah.
type thing. Do some fundraising, get people to contribute into it, in addition to free cash. And, Jerry Saracel's point was, well, the 200,000 that's going to the RTE, we could put that into the community fund. Instead of just 50, it could be 250. So, let's take an opposite view. Let's, for sake of argument, let's say we get to the vote in September and they decide not to do it after all, or something changes and it doesn't go through. Well, now we got 200,000 on overlay that we don't need. My theory would be, well, let's go to the next town meeting and reappropriate that 200,000 and put it into the
Put
community.
that into the community
Right.
fund.
So, I mean, I don't think the appropriation of the money is gonna be not well utilized. One way or another, it's gonna be utilized to affect some sort of program to help people.
But can we get it into the fund quicker than going to another town meeting?
Well, we got,
Somebody can
so they
do it.
voted the program guidelines on the community fund.
But I'd like to see.
Well, actually, yeah, we could do it. Well, it would have to be in May and June. He gotta wait. But we got, they established a program guidelines of $500 award for this upcoming fiscal year. For the community fund. So $50,000 is divided by 500, we can help 100 people. So we think that's a good start, right?
Well, how many, do we know how many people that fit
The qualifications?
yeah.
Well,
What qualifications?
Yeah, what would-
Pick a number, 60%, is it?
oh, the town.
No, is it of the median
Resident.
income, is it? If you're gonna use that as I don't know what you use in the other programs here in town. And as I said to you the other day, Rich, do we have a separate vetting program for each one of these benefits?
So the
we
nice
have?
thing about the Resident Taxpayer Assistance Program, the community fund, is that we wrote into the legislation that the select board gets to adopt the policies and procedures. So their policy this year for participation in the community fund is just an affirmative statement from somebody saying that you need it.
It's a hardship.
It's a hardship, document the hardship, and there'll be an interview with the assessor and a select board member, kind of to vet that out a little bit. And if that little committee approves it, you get it. So it's a very easy application. You just got to state the reason you think you need it, and a couple people will talk to you about it, and approved.
Most of the exemption programs we have are either specific to an age, an infirmity, you're a veteran, you're senior, or they're they're income-based, not asset-based, so. The problem is with the state exemptions, like if you're $500 over that income cap, you're certainly not wealthy, but you don't qualify for the exemption, so. Those are the And there's really no exemptions for just, you know, what I say, the average like working person from 20 to 65. We don't have anything for if you're having a really bad year, if you fell off a ladder and, you know,
Couldn't work.
can't work and, you know,
And did they establish a maximum amount of relief that can come, that you pay?
Yeah, $500.
just because we didn't have much money in the fund.
So if, if we got if we went in that direction, I'm just spitballing, in the direction of the community fund as opposed to the RTE to try to help people that be able to afford to stay in Eastham. Eventually, it'd be taxes that would pay, that would fund that fund, people's tax money. So it might raise everybody's taxes across town, residents and part-time residents.
Yeah.
A slight amount,
Mhm.
so everybody be putting into the pool for the community fund.
Right.
But only the people that need it would
You
get it,
get it.
which would be different the other way, yeah, obviously.
Well, and yes, it theoretically would be taxes, but also, but again, we'd love to get donations and people to, you know, leave money to it, you know, because they believe in it. You know, if we can have a few good years and show some success, I think that would have been something that that the people in this town would contribute to.
Could people leave a bequest?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the idea. Ultimately,
That's- Yeah.
the Resident
so-
Taxpayer Assistance Fund is just one piece of, so since this legislature didn't like the Eastham Community Fund name, so you know, the idea was to create an Eastham Community Fund. This is one program of it and add other programs. And then, you know, solicit the community to contribute. Here are the programs of our community fund. You got a taxpayer assistance fund, maybe you have a beautification fund, maybe you got, you know, whatever, you know, windmill green fund, you know, whatever case you want. And we would have, you know, almost like a build an endowment type of thing.
that. What if
You can write your will.
we all missed the boat on this one.
So-
Well, it's just slow, you know, progress is slow, and I mean,
Right.
that progress was quick. Really, in 2 years to be able to set up a fund and get special legislation to do it and everything that. You know, we're able to do, that's the fast track for government, but it's still not fast enough for some people.
I feel kind of sad that the select board with everything that's happening here, and it's so exciting going forward with the select board, as you said,
Yeah.
chose this particular year to move it forward. If they could have just waited a little while longer.
Any other comments?
No, thank
Thoughts?
you.
So I've put down a little note for myself, Fred, to discuss it, again, as a committee. With the understanding that the vote is taken in September, so.
So, one more thought. You know, maybe Fred already covered this, but if we got together, had a couple meetings, maybe Fred drafts a letter, you know, and we work on some kind of a statement to present to the select board of finance committee's thoughts on this. Could we say that that would it be true that if they voted against it in September, that we could take the $200,000 that we set aside for overlay and immediately put that into the, or does that have to be voted on by town meeting?
That would have to be voted
It'd
on.
have to be reappropriated. But, you know, I don't know if it fits the qualifications of extraordinary and unforeseen, but, you know, you got a reserve fund that maybe you could transfer some money.
What's our reserve fund, 200?
200.
The finance committee has reserve
Just
fund
so
of
happens.
200,000.
Coincidence.
Yeah.
We promised to give it back.
Or, you know, and sometimes like we didn't think of this, we didn't think quickly enough, but on our feet, I guess, but if we've been able to work with the part-time residents to raise some money this summer, you know, maybe, I don't know if that would have been possible, but, you know, I think we did the math, if all the Aperta members gave us $10, we'd have quite a bit of money.
$100.
$100.
1,000
I don't think that's quite a bit of money.
But now it could be too late for that.
Okay, so I'm going to move onward here, to old business. And I know the capital project committee, is there any update on that? I guess that would be mostly wastewater. And the appeal we're still waiting to hear the results of the appeal.
Well, I think we have some good news coming on that.
Mhm.
And that, I don't know if there's any money assigned to it, but we think we are likely to move up above the line, so to speak, so that, we're eligible for funding. So, I would, who knows how that shakes out, so I probably shouldn't, speculate too much, but I would imagine that, it's probably not too much that's gonna happen for this year, but maybe that sets us up for something next year. So, so that's promising. And then Monday, we're getting receipt of our 30% design documents that we're gonna start to go over internally. And then we'll forward them to the CPC. It'll be a basis of the upcoming meetings, I'm sure, with the CPC.
Second
So we say
Tuesday.
you're on the CPC, you're on the CPC, and you're all the three of you.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we just talked to them and they're in a quorum.
Person over there. Second,
Are we meeting on Tuesday?
second Tuesday, right?
Yeah, but we went above them. Yeah.
Second Tuesday of the month.
You have a meeting coming up next month.
Second Tuesday.
That's the 8th.
That's correct, the 8th. The school facility study, the RFP I know went out, and so we're just waiting on the RFP.
Yeah.
Was there a date that was supposed to be returned by?
Yes, and I forget when it was. I want to say 6 weeks. It was 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
From say,
From when
week
it
and a half
was
ago. Yeah.
originally issued.
So probably the end of April, maybe, beginning of May.
Okay, and the other item is the public school regional agreement, and I don't think anything's been done on that either.
I think they're waiting for the new.
They're waiting for the new,
Superintendent, yeah.
the new superintendent.
When does that happen, Peter?
June, yeah,
June.
July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1.
But I think it's he, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's coming earlier than that date to sort of overlap with Brooke.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
and he lives here. He has a house in Dallas.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I did pass out, I'm on to the agenda here on item 7. I did pass out the, most recent manager's report that you, sent out for the select board meeting this past Monday. Here it is here. I didn't know if anybody had any questions for Jackie on her report. The lease to locals program, we do have monies in the warrant for that.
Year, yeah.
Right, right. Did anybody have any questions or comments, et cetera, on Jackie's manager's report? Did you have anything that you wish to add? Okay. Okay, before I ask for an adjournment, I just want to, since this is sort of our last meeting of all this, since the warrant is going to print shortly. I just want to thank everybody here for all of the time and the energies that they've put into this year for working together on this fiscal year. It's been a lot of meetings, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and so I just want to thank everybody for that. I want to thank Rich for his support, financial support, and Jackie for hers. I want to thank Paul in particular for the reports that he's done for us. And I want to thank Peter for helping me out as co-chair. So I just want to thank everybody and Mira for all her documents and her minutes. So we really appreciate that, bringing the copies to our meetings for us. I just want to comment that the pre-town meeting is scheduled for April 22nd. I think the original warrant that came out had the wrong date. So it's April 22nd. It is a Tuesday at 5:30 and it's at the Eastham Library. And that's not something that we have to attend as a group, but it's something that I think is interesting, and see what types of questions come up and what their concerns are. There's the candidates night. There are a number of people running for an assortment of different positions in the town. And that's scheduled for May 13th at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. And if people are interested in seeing what people's thoughts are on why they're running for whatever position they're running for.
Will that be zoomed or live or?
I don't, I hope they would tape it, but it's not ours, so I don't know. I'll have to check with,
I think Jim Lusso, the Chamber of Commerce is involved, and the dog
dog owners.
owners, and I don't know whether it's recorded or not.
What time?
I
Oh,
think they
oh,
would have
six-
to ask
say
us
six-
to. I don't think we have
6
it
o'clock.
asked.
I'm sorry, Jackie?
They'd have to ask.
Yeah, they'd have to ask, and I don't think we've recorded it in the past, because it's not technically a town.
Right, it's
committee.
not being run by the town,
Yeah,
by
right.
Is it
Chamber-
being run by the?
It's too
chamber?
bad.
Chamber of Commerce and the dog owners.
Okay, well, and, right, okay.
For
Yeah,
some
we're-
of us.
And Jim is also retiring too.
Oh, he is? Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, the requisition or the job description is out in a number of places. I've been sending it to a lot of people.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I think it's this May, like next month, yeah.
Be nice if those of us who aren't gonna be around for that candidates night could somehow watch a video or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so, as it's 6 o'clock on May 13th at Town Hall. Any other comments, before I ask for an adjournment?
Are we gonna, we're not gonna meet before town meeting, right?
No, we're not planning on it,
And are we gonna meet at town meeting? Any need for us? to-
unless we have something that we need to meet on right now. I'm not aware of something, but we.
I'll
could
probably
call it. We could-
I'll post an agenda just in case something comes up that you want to discuss before town meeting. And, I'll post it for probably half an hour before the town
Yeah,
meeting.
we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
And then if it's not needed, just let everybody know that, don't worry about showing up.
We're not gonna.
No,
Not gonna meet in April.
But
All right, next-
it's posted in the paper. that
Yeah,
we-
I saw that, in the Provincetown Independent, yeah, it was in the, yeah. I don't,
But you,
So we're not meeting on the
No,
third?
no,
or second,
no,
or
no,
third
no.
Thursday
You're
in
gonna have
April?
free time.
Get a month off.
you get to read, I'm gonna read a book.
I'm going to.
Don't be so disappointed.
Okay, so Rich is
Town
gonna.
meeting is Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, we have a theme.
Oh, good. Are you gonna give everybody margaritas?
Oh, my God.
We're trying for dates and childcare and some food, but we gotta, the food is gonna be hard because we don't want people to fall asleep with the sugar.
Okay,
We're
folks,
back at night now, so we have
Back
to
at night.
stay up.
Still gonna have our
That's
remotes though,
sort
right?
of a
Still
cap
gonna
on
have
it.
remote
Yes,
voting.
yes.
Electronic.
So no meeting in April.
and the moderator determines whether non-residents can speak, correct?
That's correct.
the moderator,
I
yeah, I
thought
think the
that-
rules are in the back of the town.
Well, the
clerk.
moderator usually should ask permission of town meeting, so
Yeah.
they ask the body.
At the back
I see.
of the warrant, it says,
It's in the back of
the
warrant.
person, if someone, non-resident wants to speak, they have to approach the moderator before the meeting. And the moderator asks town meeting if they'll allow this person to speak.
Could
Yeah,
I,
I think
could
we
I
have
just,
it.
I wanna ask a quick question. Is it part-time residents or non-residents?
So this is a big thing for me, because they would like to be called part-time residents, and they are part-time residents, right?
Right.
The legal term, though, is you're either a resident
Or a
or you're a non-resident. So they get mad when we use that, but it has meaning to me, and part-time resident doesn't have meaning. The legal definition is you have to choose a residence.
Thank you for clearing that up, because on the search committee, when we're looking for people to sit on boards and committees,
Yeah.
people will come up and say, I'm a non-resident, and then we have to say, so are you a non-resident of Eastham part-time, or are you a non-resident living in Wellfleet, in which case? Okay. So it just.
Of course, they call themselves part-time residents. I mean, that's the name of their,
That's right.
That's what they prefer.
A lot of residents are snowbirds are part-time residents, but East
Yeah.
Ham's are residents, you know?
yeah.
But your definition in terms of the residential tax exemption, that made a lot of sense. The car registration, the census.
And those are the things that, the same things they look for if you're gonna vote. You know, it's the same collection of.
Right.
Okay, everybody, again, I want to thank everybody for their time and their patience and their efforts. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Fred is making a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roy, I've got Roy down. Fred and Roy, all in favor of adjourning. Thanks, everybody.